Hi everyone, we are back with chapter 11, which is the final in the 3 chapters about creative, and halfway through the second section of the class. So chapter 11, executing the creative. So we've been talking about coming up with the idea, what our strategy is going to be. Are we going to do humor? Are we going to do persuasive? Are we going to use fear tactics? That kind of thing. And now, how are we going to go about and execute it? How are we going to go about and do it? So again, we have our we always have our framework chapter. I'm so sorry you can't see that. I just don't know why. But it's the idea of the creative team and the creative brief, copywriting, art direction, and the production process. Excuse me. Okay, so here we go. Integrated brand promotion and action, Mountain Dew. And how does Mountain Dew execute creative? So they use a variety of platforms. They use copywriting to capture the emotion of experiences like skateboarding and reinforce brand associations such as hashtags like do the do and hopefully will make the brand tagline effective and memorable. Okay, so let's talk about some nuts and bolts here. The creative team, we've talked before about this idea that in agencies there's the creative people and there's the business folks. So we're going to talk a little bit about both sides of the business and more executional story about the excuse me, the more business side of or the practical application, step by step of what happens with the creative side. So the creative team is driven by the creative brief, and the creative brief is like the synopsis of how they're going to go about things. And involved in that is the art director, the copywriter. The art director is the one who takes care of the visuals. Copywriter takes care of the writing, any kind of words that are on there, and then the media planner helps determine the message, and then how the media is going, what media you're going to choose to share that message. We're going to talk about media in the upcoming chapters after this. Then there's the account planner that makes sure that the consumer has a voice in what's going on, kind of keeps everything on track. So the creative brief is talk about the unique creative thought behind the campaign. And here's just an example of the creative brief again. You can take a look at it. It's also in the textbook. But so who the client is, what the message media mix is going to be. It's open right now. What the message is going to be. That kind of thing. It's the actual document that's created. Okay, so copywriting has to, so if it's, there's going to be different copywriting for the newspaper ad than there is for a radio ad, what there is for an internet ad, a YouTube video, television ad, that kind of thing. So the copywriter really needs to know what's going on. They need to have to be very well informed about the product and the brand, and also what the plan is, what the style is going to be, and they're really very adept at writing. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm coughing like this. Okay, so here are the ads that you see copywriting with the priceless, the MasterCard priceless ads. You've probably seen them all, seen many of them on television. Okay, so, and also not television, also in print and online. So when you're trying to come up with a creative brief, you want to make sure what is it that you want the consumers to take away from it. Make sure that you emphasize the correct product features or the product features you're trying to go after, the benefits that people are going to use from using it. And you need to know, it has to, as again, we're going to say this over and over again, it has to match the media that you're choosing, media being radio, television, newspaper, that kind of thing, online. What the mood is going to be, and then always important, money. How much money do we have to spend? So there's an approval process. You can take a look at that. It's, again, on the slides. I don't know why it doesn't show up. I apologize for that. But go through and make sure everybody's in agreement about what you're going to be doing. Okay, so print advertising, you need a headline. for whatever it is, whatever you ad you may be doing. Um, Coke, it's the real thing or whatever it may be. You want to make sure it attracts attention, that there's some sort of, you can identify with the brand, and that you really want to make sure this is where the reader is going to decide if they continue to read on or move to the next thing. Then there's a subhead. Also, this is to a certain extent, you think, well, I learned all these things in English class. To a certain extent, it's not too different than writing a paper. Some of the same elements, just executed in a different way. It's usually in smaller text, above or below the headline. And it usually reinforces what the headline is and what the brand image is, and it also should encourage you to continue to read. Okay, then the body text is the body copy is the text. What's the actual more detail of the information. It tells more of a complete story. It reinforces what you've already talked about. It should be compatible with whatever visual you're having, picked photograph or drawing, whatever you have in there, and just tells the reader straight out what they're going to be, the potential customer, what their benefits are going to be. So you also might have there's a variety of different ways you can have dialogue between people in an ad. Between you see what's the conversation going to be, or it could be if you're doing a testimonial, one person, an opinion leader, celebrity, subject matter expert talking about something. The narrative is this idea is what are the variety of different statements, what is it about the that you're trying to get across, what is it that what's the actual message you're getting out there. And then direct response copy is inviting you to act in some way. Go to this store, buy this item, go to this website, buy this item, that kind of thing. Okay, so copywriting for television and video. There are some limitations that it might not be. It can't be. You want to make sure the timing fits with the amount of information you want to share about the brand and the highlights of the brand. So you don't necessarily want to have too many things that are too complex, too much detail. You just want to get the high points out there. It's very effective though because you can use visuals and special effects, sound, all those. That's where the jingle comes in or the music comes in, and that helps to really reinforce what you're the mood you're trying to promote, and that kind of thing. Okay, so again, television and video. You just have to make sure that the whatever you're talking about matches whatever the people are doing on the ad. Usually what they use is what we call a storyboard. It looks almost like a cartoon. It's on a big board. It almost looks like a set of cartoon blocks that you would read in the Sunday paper or any day of the paper. They see a cartoon, and they have different blocks, and that would be, it's a step-by-step or shot-by-shot look of what's going to be happening. Okay, so essentially you want to make sure that it all stays in sync with each other, and that whatever the words are matches the picture, and there needs to be some level of entertainment or with some way to captivate the audience, and again reflecting the brand personality and image. It helps to build campaigns, and so the progressive ads, for example, it sort of tells a story. You've got the progressive girl who progressive insurance, and she tells a story and little vignettes of her life from time to time. Okay, writing copy for radio is a little bit more difficult. They refer to the radio as the theater of the mind, and that you really have to create something that people are going to tune into and listen to, because there are very few active radio listeners. Usually when you're listening to the radio, you're driving, you're cooking dinner, you're reading the paper, you're folding your laundry, whatever. You're doing all these different things. So you need to do something that really captivates. So usually the shorter, it's hard, recall is much more difficult. So usually the shorter, the better. And the more captivating, the better. That people will hear it, and then next time they hear it again, they'll ring in what they just heard last time. Okay, so you want to, we only remember 30% at most of what we hear. So you want to make sure that you get people's attention, you get to the point very early. You want to use short words and short sentences. You want to repeat the brand name over and over again. Repetition is so important. Talk about this main selling point. You want to make sure that there's music, but not so much music that it overpowers what people are saying. And the one thing about radio and radio copy and radio ads is that they are pretty customizable, and because they're not as difficult to produce as a television ad or a print ad, and so you can customize it to a certain area, geographic area, or a certain any other demographic or psychographic that each different radio station that you're advertising on is trying to, is whoever that radio station targets to. Okay, so digital and interactive media. It's a whole new ball game these days because we use so much more of it. So generally speaking, it's the customer has to come to the ad. It's not as, unless you're forced to watch an ad, say before you see a video or a YouTube video or read an article. The person really has to seek it out, and so therefore you can assume that the audience is a little bit more engaged and interested in what's going on. So there are two different approaches, one long copy and short copy. Long copy assumes that the person is going to sell a product directly, and that have a lot of visuals and that kind of thing. Short copy is something that someone might research, might reach out into like a keyword search. It's probably going to be not as much information. It's going to resemble more of a magazine ad or a newspaper ad. So long copy is really for the more interested consumer. Short copy is for maybe the less interested consumer, but hopefully soon to be interested consumer. Okay, so digital and interactive media, same thing. Long copy email, a teaser email. One is long, one is short. You might just have some sort of action with a long copy email. Encouragement to act. So interactive media, they have pop-up ads or pop-under ads that you're familiar with, I'm sure, for being online. And there might not be too much copy, just a headline to pique interest. And then social media copy is usually some sort of, it's an opportunity to build brand awareness, and then hopefully for them to interact more, to be intrigued enough to click on and interact more. There's a lot of text in these slides, this chapter, I apologize. So short phrases are used to help establish some sort of image, a quick, jog the memory, something to make a reference, something that you're going to have a reference to, or have a some sort of quick identification of the brand. And it's an opportunity, really, this idea of with slogans and taglines. It's something that you quickly associate with the brand itself. So here we go. Here are some samples. Again, I'm not sure if you can read it, but Allstate Insurance, for example, their slogan is "You're in good hands with Allstate." BMW, Ultimate Driving Machine. Harley Davidson, "The legend rolls on." L'Oreal, "Because I'm worth it." Visa, "It's everywhere you want to be." That kind of thing. Budweiser, "King of beers." These are things that people will respond to. Okay, so art direction is the next part of the executing the creative portion. And art direction, it's changed so much because the technology has changed. And it's really just using visuals, pictures over words. And it's also this idea that, assuming that we all have, there's all, globally we're all the same, that there, in the human condition, that there are things that it's portable, that you can move it from culture to culture, and there are certain human needs that we all respond to. So illustration are any kind of visual, any kind of shape or anything like that. The shapes and aesthetics of ads, so at quick glance what it looks like. Hopefully it will attract and hold attention and ties in with other parts of the ad, any kind of words you may have. It's going to display the brand features or some sort of visualization of the brand feature. It can really create a mood, and it can attract or repel someone immediately. So that's why it's important that you have one that attracts. Okay, design is sort of the overall look of it. So how is it that you're going to compose the ads? Like, so for example, in the Absolute ads, it's just the bottle and with, a blank background, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure you have some sort of consistent look. You see certain insurance ads, they always have the same backgrounds of the ad, same setting, that kind of thing. Something that is a general overall look. So again, it's how everything works together. So say, you can have a modern style or a traditional style or, a country style or, a outer space style, whatever it may be, that there's some sort of, that it all works together and it fits together, that there's some sort of, you can either have formal balance or informal balance, that there's some sort of symmetry to it, which is, pleasing to the eye. Symmetry doesn't really exist that much in nature, so it's sometimes nice to have asymmetry, things each side not quite matching up with the other, but again, getting the point across. So here we go with an example of informal balance. Again, hopefully you can see it. It's an ad for Harley Davidson. There's a woman on one side, very abstract, and then on the other side of the ad in the lower right-hand corner, as we look at it, is the motorcycle itself. And these are things that, we'll move on, but so you don't have to look at that, but these are things, if you have a creative eye, it's a skill that people have and can really be developed to create a pleasing composition and something that is visually pleasing and visually interesting enough for people to hang on to. So, and also the way you can use these elements will tell a story. So, those ads, for example, with the elephants and the pistachios, you've got these small elephants, and these small pistachios and these very large elephants, that it's that juxtaposition of the proportion tells a story. And then the idea too is this idea of proportion. So you want to make sure the proportion is correct and tells a story. And then you want to make sure that whatever is the order of the ad is, or the order of the examples, will tell you, tell some sort of story and flows well to convey that story. So here we go, example in the use of proportion. Again, you can see there's a dog that's all wrapped up. It's for Parmalat milk. It shows a proportion that can result in an inspired display of the oversized versus the undersized. So in the one corner, we have the dog all wrapped up in bandages, and then a small cat in the corner. Okay, so design and layout, again, very important, as we've been talking about, very important. There should be some unity to it, that, again, you create this visually pleasing look. And these are things that artists and designers who work on these projects are very skilled in, and comes very second nature to them. So there's a variety of different things you can do. You want to create this unity. You want to tie everything together. That you might have a border surrounding everything. Might have something access that's something through the. You have an access in the middle. Everything runs out from the middle. You might have three elements that your eye carefully moves from place to place, or you might do a symmetrical with the right hand side equals the left hand side, or in some sort of similarity or juxtaposition. And you'll see this, when we talk about art, we talk about like line, color, and shape. So, a good painting or a good sculpture will have you, use line, color, and shape to help you move throughout the painting and maybe focus on one area. The same is true in ads. You want to make sure that you can use line, color, and shape that will force the eye or invite the eye to move through it and get everything being able to see everything. So here are just some examples: 3-point layout structure with the woman with the bag, and then the text, the medium-sized text and lower text. So there's 3 different visual elements. Parallel, we've got an ad for parallel layout for a Gibson Guitar Company. So you've got the 2 guitarists on either side. Okay, so the trick is to be able to, when you talk about illustration, design, and layout, you want to emphasize which major components should be emphasized. And one item should not be completely, not necessarily completely focused on. You should have a variety of things that you want to look at, or make sure that every other components are worth including, so that there's enough visual interest that will keep people moving throughout. So layout is also very important. Drawing or digital rendering of a proposed print advertisement. It's it's like a mock-up, shows where the ads are going to be positioned. You might have like a thumbnail. We see thumbnails on our computers. So you might have just a first draft or rough draft of what the advertising is going to be layout. Very rough draft. And then there's even a rougher draft that's done usually in the same size, but has a little bit more detail in it. And then the comp, which is what you'll be looking at, what the final ad will look like. So as you go through, they make refinements, and it's like when you think about writing a paper and you do a draft. These are the drafts. So here's an example of a classic storyboard, which we talked about last time. It looks like for a beer ad for Miller Lite. As I said, it looks similar to a cartoon that you might see in the paper. Okay, so you also want to make sure that you have the right typography. You're familiar with that. When you're working in a Word document, you have choices of different fonts to use. So, and font does make a difference. Whether you're going to have, how fancy it will be, how basic, how simple it will be. If we'll have a serif, not the serif. The serif, is that little tail, and you might see like a little tail on the end of an eye. Instead of an eye can just be a straight line, or it can have like, a little decoration on top, a little decoration on the bottom, that kind of thing. These are done in sans serif without the little extra detail on the sides. Okay, and then it got also type measurement. You want to make sure that it's wide enough and tall enough to read, or the right height and the right width. And the use of capitalization, capitals and lowercase, making sure that it's left to right. That's because that's how we read in our country. You can we read horizontally. We don't read vertically, and we go back and forth across the page. And you also want to make sure that there's some level of even spacing. It's this whole idea of making it pleasing to the eye and easy for people to read. We are so inundated with so much every day that you want to make sure that when people are reading ads, they're able to read them with a certain amount of ease. You'll notice too, it's very rare that you'll see all caps. Newspaper headlines. Look at newspaper headlines. Sometimes you will use all caps, but usually you use lower caps. They'll use what we refer to as all caps, like this title is art direction. So even though they're all technically capital letters, some of them are smaller than others. Okay, so this is another ad, art direction, leading to reading copy. There's a guy with a tail hanging out of his mouth and a Beck's beer. There's a really unusual kind of maybe disturbing look, but it should entice you to read the copy. And then here we go, brand and product, deciding which major components should be emphasized. And usually what you want to do is focus on the branded product. This is, in this case, Polo by Ralph Lauren. So here we go, art direction and production in digital social interactive media is our next topic. So social media has really social media and digitization has completely changed the advertising game in the past 15 years or so, or maybe more. And they're always there. That's one thing. It's a challenge, but it's a great opportunity. And even if someone doesn't like it, it can still be screenshot, and uh, it lives on for posterity. Now, that's not to say that someone can't keep an ad, from a newspaper or a magazine. So I guess really the point is that just because something disappears from the internet doesn't mean from the internet doesn't mean it's gone forever. So you have to be careful. That's a downside. You have to make sure your decision in the beginning is the best decision. So it is possible television and radio can be transferred over to the web. So the big difference is how people come to it. Um, in terms of people online, you usually find it on your own. It's not necessarily you seek it out. Um, uh, and but it's also easier to click out of it. The one benefit to digitization and digital ads is that it's very quick to revise. And again, this whole idea of leaving the digital footprint, it's so much more instantaneous that this is a duplicate. I apologize for that. So you want to anyway. That's just the idea of the internet lives forever. Okay, so example of digital Ford Build Tough, and they talk about this in the ad itself. Okay, so art direction and production in digital interactive media. It's not too different. You want to have, this whole idea of persuasive versus entertainment is a challenge. That so a lot of times people spend time on the internet for entertainment. So you want to make sure that your ad is not only entertaining but also persuasive. And this whole idea of consumer-generated content, that people making their own ads for brands, you have to be careful that you don't necessarily have control over that. So it can be a positive and a negative. Maybe if you think no publicity is bad publicity, that's one way to look at it. But also, consumers can offer information that can help you get a better, copy for your audience. Okay, so here we go. The Doritos Super Bowl ad is an example of consumer-generated marketing. Target's back to school campaign, children did that. It's a way to engage people in your brand to feel more a part of it. And also, get all their friends. If they generated it, then get their friends and their family members to look at it as well. So you want to make sure, if you're doing television advertising, that you have something that's attention-getting and relevant, so that people catch their eye in the first place. The visual is so important, and again, we've talked about this before. Coordinating the audio with the visual, this delicate balance between entertainment and persuasion. You always want to show the brand. So this is an ad for BMW, and it's a glass of water with the BMW logo small in the upper right-hand corner. So would it have been more effective if they actually showed the car? Or, does the colors of the ad remind you of BMW? Does it intrigue you enough to read it? That kind of thing. Okay, so again, this is the production process. We talked about the storyboard and budget approval, and then deciding whether or not it's, who's going to participate in it, who's going to edit it, what kind of music are you going to use, that kind of thing. And here we go. This is just again, I don't know why you can't read this. It's just baffling to me. But how many times do I say this in these things? I apologize, but every time I see it, I'm surprised. So TV advertising, there is the pre-production stage. You go through the storyboard, then you approve the budget. You decide who's going to direct it, who's going to edit it, who's going to provide the music. Then you review those bids, and then you do a timetable, and then you select the cast and a location and all that kind of thing. So this is written out of that chart that was in the last slide that you couldn't really read very well. Anyway, so you want to make sure that once you get in production, that you have a competent production company and filmers who are going to make sure that they have a plan and the quality is good, essentially. Okay, and then ultimately there is the shoot of the ad. It's usually it's high stress time. Everything has to be right. It's so expensive. You want to make sure that you do it right the first time, and managing the process is really an important part of making sure that the ad and the ad campaign itself is effective and successful. Okay, so that wraps up chapter 11 and talking about creative. And as I said, in the next couple chapters, we're going to talk about media and choosing media and coming up with media and that kind of thing, all the pros and cons of that. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you back here.